welcome aboard, everybody. It's Sunday evening. It's all Lacrosse Live. I'm Gary Groob in Toronto. With me, I have Shawn Slaght in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, or someplace close to Moose Jaw, where you can't. How are you, Shawn?
Out in the middle of nowhere, Saskatchewan. Thanks, Gary.
We're just the traveling road show as well.
The important thing is he's got reception, so
he's got
That's
reception.
right.
Connectivity. We can be here.
And I can see from where I'm at here in your sky, so that's a good thing. I got Muffler Mike Kostiuk in Connecticut. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing good, Gary.
Well, again, you've had another really busy week, and all kinds of different things and different topics. We're going to hit on a lot of topics. We're going to hit on the Limerick Ireland stuff, the under 21s. We're going to talk a little bit in the NLL stuff and what's coming up and free agencies on the horizon. The WLA is in the midst of trying to figure out who their finals will be. MSL has already figured out their finals. PLL had a busy week, so we got a lot to cover. I want to start this week though. We want to talk about the under 21s from Limerick, Ireland, and man, these guys are just lighting it up. It's just an absolute amazing tournament, and all kinds of strange scores. We have U.S. kicking the teeth out of everybody, like always. Pretty used to that one by now. But we had Australia beating Haudenosaunee today, and I don't know if that's an upset. What do you think, Shawn?
I don't know. Maybe a little bit. I mean, Australia usually does field fairly good competitive teams, but the fact that they took out Haudenosaunee is quite shocking, in my opinion.
I think so too, because we've heard so much about the Iroquois / the Haudenosaunee and the teams that they've put out, and I've seen it firsthand with with the Six Nations Arrows, and there's just an absolute bucoon of talent out there. But underratedly, and I know Australia's had some good teams, but to put it all together here is pretty amazing. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, it definitely speaks towards a couple of different points, which for Australia specifically, the future would certainly be nice to see some young players, maybe from Australia, hit the States or North America and get into some leagues and get some exposure. And,
well, I think that's next, don't you? This is
considering it's the under 21 team that we're talking about. So in a few years, we could be seeing some of these guys, in the National Lacrosse League and the PLL, maybe even coming over to play box in the summer in Canada. So I think that's a great thing, and I think it also speaks to the parity, that we're starting to see increased parity, hopefully, in the sport.
Like one of the things that stands out, of course, is the U.S. is 3-0. The goal differential is 37-10, so they're still the class act, and everybody is trying to meet up with them. Canada, the only loss that they took, of course, is to the U.S. because this Group A, USA, Canada, Australia, Haudenosaunee, England.
Jeez.
Wow. Oh, it's like
that's a death group right there.
Yeah,
it is. Who's going to go against this one? Your Group B is Japan, Puerto Rico, Israel, Czech Republic, and I'm sure that they're working hard, but I don't think that any of them are on the elite level of a USA, Canada, or even an Australia now.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. Group C's got Ireland, Germany, Jamaica, and Latvia. D is Wales, China, Poland, Kenya, and Chinese Taipei. And E is Hong Kong, Netherlands, Sweden, Korea, and Uganda. Yes, the Ugandan team made it. Yes, Ireland will let them in, but the U.S. won't. And I don't
go figure that one out.
Them staying or whatever. But you know what? Uganda, they're 0-3. But their goal differential, they have 15-4 and 31 against. I think they're doing a really good showing on the world stage, and I think this is just the stepping stone and seeing what's out there and how their programs are going to build from now.
That's only a good thing for the program, right, Gary? They can't improve unless they're out there playing against the best in the world. And how are they going to do that? By competing in these competitions.
I agree. Mike, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's that they can only learn and improve from just being at the tournament and playing and getting the exposure and getting those game reps basically,
Exactly.
against more skilled opponents. So
Exactly. We had another good story out of this one, and we've had a lot, with World Lacrosse and not recognizing the Iroquois team, and they've changed the name now to Haudenosaunee, and so we have the Haudenosaunee passport here, and there was a message by Rex Lyons, and I just want to read it for you guys, and I'll let you guys have a look at it as well. I want to express my deepest appreciation to the Irish and Team Ireland. It was the first time in history of traveling on our Haudenosaunee passport that we were treated with such dignity and respect. Escorted us through customs with all the necessary paperwork, and we were in Ireland without any issues whatsoever. Once again, showing the world how we can all treat each other better and build a stronger, healthier relationships when the effort is put forth. No way, Ireland. I think that is an absolutely spectacular um, saying of how this is going. And I'm hoping that everybody else in every other tournament, World Lacrosse, the World's coming up, the Olympics, will take heed of this and see that this does work.
yeah, I agree. Kudos to Ireland. We already know that we already know the other story about Ireland pulling out of the World Games,
Yep.
so that
Yep.
the Haudenosaunee could participate since they were technically ranked third. I believe they're
Mhm.
currently ranked third in the world behind the U.S. and Canada. So to
It also took
just
just about every other nation to go, we're going to pull out if you don't put them in. So it was nice to see
Yeah.
everybody put
yeah
together. But did it really need to come to that? Like enough's enough. Like we're 2022. It's about time that everybody gets over themselves, and they are a sovereign nation. They have their own passports. They are a sovereign nation. They should be able to travel without incident, and this proves it. It can be done. So
Yeah, I
I
mean,
applaud Ireland. I applaud everything they're doing. Go ahead, Shawn.
I was gonna say, yeah, how many tournaments have we heard where the Haudenosaunee try to travel and their passports aren't accepted?
Hell, they've been denied and sent back before. That's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah yeah. I mean, hopefully these couple of events can kind of be the start of
Well,
what should
smart
be the
everybody
norm.
up. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
and hopefully everyone can take a look at this and learn from it and
Mhm.
understand what needs to be done to make their lives easier for future tournaments. Whether it's across the pond or in North America. Just
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, let's move forward. We had another one. We had the Ontario Senior B champs crowned, and it is the Six Nations Rivermen who beat the Oakville Rock, formerly the Oakville Titans. Now, if you guys remember, the Oakville Rock got strengthened by a number of Oakville Rock from Major Series Lacrosse since they decided not to play this year. So they had a pretty strong team, but this group here, they beat them 3 games to nothing. So I would suggest that this wasn't pulling a fluke. This team is for real, and I wish them all the best in the upcoming President's Cup for the Senior B Championships. So
congratulations to them.
Big
absolutely.
congratulations.
Absolutely. So we going on to the NLL, we have a few things to discuss there. First and foremost, we have a ratified CBA. The NLL and NLPA are pleased to announce that the players have ratified a new 3-year collective bargaining agreement, which was agreed upon in principle last week. The free agency period will still begin August 15th tomorrow, which gives us something else to chat about. Both the league and the association thank all those who have worked tirelessly during this process. We look forward to a collective future of growth and engagement. Um, like we all said last week, is it would have been suicide for this not to gratify because with all the momentum that they've had with the television deals, with the season that they had last year, even blowing through some of the COVID protocols, as well as that heck of a playoff series that we had in all rounds, let alone the finals. It would have been absolute suicide to have a lockout or a strike because of something silly like this. So I'm really glad that the goodwill that started with Sikavitz in the front office as well as with the PLPA. That they've been able to work together, hammer out a deal, ratify it, and now we don't have to worry about any of this for at least 3 years. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah. Kudos to the league for one being able to get this nailed down while all this other turmoil is going on. With the commissioner leaving, then the deputy commissioner, who we thought was going to become the commissioner, decides to depart, and to be able to navigate the negotiations really kind of without a commissioner. And when you factor in dealing with basically new leadership at the players union, it's the first time we've ever had players running the players union.
Very true.
You also got to give you also have to give kudos to Zach Currier and Reed Reinhold, the president and vice president of the New Player Association, for also recognizing that, hey, we've got a great thing going. We need to kind of keep the momentum going. And it's 3 years, so that's a good thing.
And that'll give the new commissioner a chance to put his imprint on there too, which
exactly.
I think is important. With
sure.
him coming over and
sounds like we might have lost Gary there.
I think we may have lost Gary, but
I
was going to add.
But we'll,
I don't know. I was going to add. It's so great that they got this deal done so quickly. I don't know how many times you'll see in other sports where it drags on into training camp and all that, and they have to delay, and it just turns into a messy situation. So I'm just glad they got it done quickly. They were able to ratify it quickly, and then we could just move on.
Yeah, and we got free agency.
We're one of those nights, guys.
So yeah, no worries. we got free agency starting. In a few hours.
Well, there we go. Well, yeah. Well, just to have a look at some of the names, some of the bigger names in there. We got Curtis Dickson, Brendan Bombury, Kevin Crowley, Kyle Rubish, Ryan Benesh, Chris Corbeil, Damon Edwards, Tim Edwards, Shawn Evans. The list keeps going here. Kyle Killen, Connor Kiernan, Zach Harrower, Jeremy Noble, Bryce Sweeting, Chris Wardle. Goalie wise, you're looking for that, which is interesting that Saskatchewan went and signed Penny. Aaron Bold, Gal Abrams, Evan Kirk, Alex Bouquet, Steve Fryer. They're all up on the free agency also.
Yeah.
So.
And a couple of the guys you mentioned, I believe, have already been signed. Brendan Bombury, I believe, signed a 2-year deal with Georgia.
Okay. Right.
And then who else did you mention? There was someone else you mentioned. I think that's already been signed.
Well, we had
maybe
two signed for 3. We had Curtis Knight signed for 2. Penny, he signed, like I say, he signed with Saskatchewan. But generally speaking, there's quite a few of them that are still out on the market there that could be some interesting travels, especially with big name guys like that.
Yeah, what's everyone's feeling on? We kind of discussed it maybe a couple of weeks ago when free agency was supposed to start at the beginning of the month. But what's everyone's feeling now that everything's been ratified and is ready to go as far as people moving? I'm still of the opinion that not a lot of people are going to move. Maybe Dickson, but I can't see a guy like Crowley moving. Even though there's been speculation, hey, he could go to Vancouver. He's a New Westminster native, but he has his fusion lacrosse going, not only out west but in Philadelphia that he heads up. I can't see the Wings letting him walk. Not at this stage.
Yeah.
One thing on that one is Crowley right now actually lives and works in Metro Vancouver.
He does. Okay.
So and he's also playing for the Salmon Bellies, right? Or has been. So maybe, and maybe now that Cordingley is there and Sanderson, maybe this become a little bit more enticing to go to Vancouver.
The Paul
Yes.
stability. I've always seen Crowley's kind of the face of the franchise with the Wings. So I don't know. I'm kind of with Mike. I have a hard time seeing him go.
Well, we did let him go the one time because he came to Toronto, right?
That's
Yeah.
true. I mean I mean the time he spent in Toronto was kind of a mid-season thing. He had moved with the team to New England. I believe it was the Billings trade.
Billings trade, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, he played 4 or 5 games in Toronto and then came back to New England. So, but my understanding was, pretty much the moment Philly was announced, he was pretty much had his mind made up that he was headed there.
But at that time, I think he was still living in Philadelphia, and we were talking about Fusion Lacrosse. So if he's living in Vancouver now, maybe this is the time, and being at the end of his career.
Yeah. There's always that. There's always that to.
Using that theory,
to factor in that a guy wants to be closer to home in the twilight of his career.
Well, so using that theory,
I don't think Crowley's near his twilight, but.
I figure using that, though, that I'll see Chris Corbeil in a Rock jersey, because he works in downtown Toronto.
I think he's on the move. But...
He actually works with Jesse, but they're in the same company.
I mean,
where they were.
I guess I'll defer to Shawn on this. I mean, between Corbeil and Rubish, do you see one or both re-signing with the Rush, or do you think both?
Honestly, I think I could see them both moving, to be quite frank with you. They've got a lot of young guys like Barnable coming up who've had outstanding careers in their junior and college careers that are on the way up, and I know they're really high on those guys. I think you're going to be seeing a shift towards those younger guys and away from the older. That's just kind of always how Derek Keenan's worked. He's always had that ladder of being able to shift old guys out and new guys in, and always having that kind of consistency. So I could see them both going. Yeah.
I mean, I guess when you factor in, I mean, they're still going to have veteran leadership in Dilks, in Matt Beers.
100%.
I don't know. Is Beers locked up?
I believe he's locked up. Yeah.
Okay, so he's still under contract. So I mean, you got those guys, and then it sounds like they're pretty much looking at, Barnable, Bobby Kidd III, maybe Jordy Jones Smith, Cornwall moved. So, but maybe looking at some of those guys, McClellan maybe as kind of the core defense.
Yeah, and you really look at last year. You look at guys like McClellan and Bobby Kidd III. Those guys really kind of started to come into their own last year. So I think they're going to be looking for a little bit more out of them as second-year players.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that seems to have been the trend, anyways, to keep going with youth. They stockpile how many picks over the years, so whatever you can find in the draft too, and to be ready-made and ready to step in. So. I don't think it's as dire as we think. And again, it's guys got to get off the bus for guys to get on the bus.
Exactly. Like just knowing Rush Nation, I know it's not going to sit well with people that they're going to let Rubish and Corbeil go. But I mean, how long do you sit on these guys when they're aging? You got young guys coming up.
And one of the things that worked for him during the championship years was being quick and transitional.
Yep.
And if your defense is going to start getting older and slower, as much as these guys have done for the league, it might just be time to cut bait and move into that new direction.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Just a couple other points I thought. The other guy I thought of that you mentioned was Tim Edwards. He's already re-signed with Colorado. I believe Robert Hope's already re-signed with Colorado. Maybe even Capito has re-signed if he wasn't already still under contract.
Right, because he wasn't on the list, but.
But I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts too on Curtis Dickson. I mean, obviously that's probably that's kind of been the number one name floating around. I kind of get the sense that as much as there's been the tension with, him not wanting to be franchised in recent years, Calgary just going ahead and franchising him anyway since you can't reject it.
Mhm.
I get maybe the point of view that he might want to test the free agent market and move somewhere, but for all the talk of Calgary rebuilding this year after losing Doby, losing Dutch, after they won the championship, I mean, we all kind of, I mean, the podcast hadn't started yet, but we all kind of sat around when they were 3-6 going, pretty much counting them out. And just about everyone, around the league was counting them out. And for them to pull off the kind of comeback they did to make the playoffs and nearly win the West Division,
Mhm.
You got to wonder kind of, hey, it's rebuilding, but it's a young core. Now they've been together a few years.
There's some really
Can,
good
can, can,
pieces
can
too.
they do it
Yeah.
again? And we've seen, with the exception of 2014, they've been winning the title every 5 years, and they were 10 minutes away from winning in 2014. So, you had a title in 09, title in 19.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
It's interesting you bring that up, Mike, because I mean, during that 3-6 run, and even through the whole season, really, who did Calgary lean on? They really leaned on Curtis Dickson, and
yeah,
they came and go with what he was doing. They really didn't have much depth in there, and but I'm kind of the opinion too. I have a feeling like he's going to test free agency as well, and we might see him on the move.
Right. And once again, they're going to do what Coquitlam did, right? They're going to rely on Kristen Del Bianco to make 60 stops a night until they can get everything sorted out. So having that little safety blanket in the back allows them to make a few more errors along the way too. That never hurts. That kind of softens the blow when you're losing that many goals from your offense, times 2 now if he goes.
true.
Yeah.
So
Because they're not going to be winning 14, 12 games. They're going to have to keep them to 9-7 games.
yeah, and if you're Calgary, do you do like Toronto sort of plans to do with Challen Rogers and start playing Shane Simpson out the front door more?
I would.
Ooh.
But I'm also in the thing that I don't think that we're beyond seeing a trade happen and seeing we talked about this also, seeing Randy Stotts maybe come over to Calgary for first round pick and something.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
We did talk about
Yeah.
that trade. We did talk about that trade, and
It looks more. It looked like
It's
it still
tempting.
sounds like it makes sense, but
especially if they lose Dickson, it would be even better if they kept Dickson and had that. All of a sudden, they have a ready-made offense again. But they have the picks to do it, and they have a couple of young players that they can send too. And from what I saw this summer, Randy's healthy and playing very well again. So before you pulled it, I guess you'd had to be scouting to make sure. But it sure looks like he's back to as close to 100% as he's going to be.
yeah, that's definitely an interesting proposition. And trades of that nature, can they also start when free agency starts, or is there a moratorium until free agency ends?
I don't think so, because I think this is going to be part of the free agent the psyche. If you can, I wouldn't even be surprised. Start be like basketball and start doing the sign and trades.
I was about to just say
Yeah.
that we'd be seeing some sign-in trades.
Yeah,
I think it'd be stupid if we didn't, because everybody else is doing it in the other sports, and this would leave us in the 19th century if we weren't able to move across and work with free agency and other aspects to build the teams. Now, granted, it'd be a whole lot more movement, but so
true. I guess the only thing that would hold that up would be
what's in the CBA?
if
Yeah.
it's not specifically in the CBA. I mean, the other thing with sign and trades, I mean, when you look at the NBA, I believe it's the NBA.
Well, it means more money in the NBA.
Well, it does. But the point I was going to make was, I believe it's the NBA. When you do sign and trades in the NBA, the money has to be pretty close to equal. Like you can't do a sign and trade with maybe say a rookie near the end of his rookie pay scale contract for some guy who's eligible for a max deal. Like numbers need to be pretty close to even. There's not much of a tolerance on that.
The other one is that the player will get more money to sign with the team he's with. So you sign him at that rate, and then you trade him with that contract. So the player makes a little more money too. Makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, player makes more money, and team gets something out of it instead of just losing their player to free agency. They can get something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
True, and we always see more so in the NLL really than any other league is that any kind of transaction, it's always you got to give something to get something. So,
right.
There's
and literally.
There's not going to be these. I'll invoke my Minnesota Vikings fandom. The Herschel Walker trade.
Yeah, for sure.
Where the Vikings pretty much built the Cowboys dynasty in the early '90s. Well, for one player that didn't pan out. So you won't see something like that ever really in the NLL. Very rarely do you have a trade where some team looks like they just horribly lost out, going after one player or giving away a trove of players.
Yeah.
Well, that being said, a couple hours from now, this will all be reality. So,
I'm definitely interested to see what's going to go down when the clock hits midnight.
Yeah. I got one more thing about the NLL, and that was from Evan Schemenauer's Random Thoughts article. And he discussed since he stays part-time in Vegas, and he had a chance to get back out to Vegas for the first time in a couple of years and clean out his condo. But he had a chance to take a look. He missed out on the meet and greet with Shawn Williams, coach and general manager, as well as a handful of players. But he was able to attend a lacrosse clinic hosted by the team the following evening. And apparently there was about 300 kids, according to his article, 80 kids that never picked up a stick before. So it's nice to see word out. Now, the other thing that surprised me was he put up a picture, this particular picture here, of the arena. Now to me, it just looks like with Ticketmaster. But the big thing here is all those pins you're seeing there. Well, Vegas already sold over 1,500 season tickets.
Excellent.
That's amazing.
Great news.
That is absolutely
Great
amazing.
News.
And the thing that stands out is, to put it in perspective, as he put it here, the first home game the Rush ever had in Saskatoon, they only had half that number of season tickets sold. The number increased significantly in the next few games and over the next few seasons, but originally they had less. So this is really, really good news in my eyes. And it looks like they're doing their homework on how to get to a community and get a community excited and ramped up.
Yeah, I completely agree, Gary. And that's something I kind of noticed just kind of going online through social media, is that they've done a really good job of marketing themselves. They're everywhere. They're trying to get the word out and handing out pamphlets and showing the game. And like you mentioned, the clinics, they're doing a lot to get their name out there and let people know that they're in the community.
Right. And thanks very much to Evan for putting that together. That brings us over to WLA, guys. Shawn, Mike, what's going on? Now, I'm trying to generate a little bit of energy through my Shamrocks. So I've got my Steve Priolo card. I've got my man cup cards from I'm trying to channel the inner Shamrock. I'm the real deal, man. I'm the real deal. I'm not just here picking a team and going, I follow the champ. Come on, guys. Give me something to work with.
I'll defer to Shawn on that series, but
As I see it, it's
I feel like it might be maybe too late. I mean, we may find out tonight, but I think it might be a little too late for Victoria.
It's almost over here.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I've kind of noticed with this series, and I think I've mentioned in a few of my articles, is credit to the Thunder's defense. The King brothers have been largely silent.
Watching yesterday's game, man, they were downright invisible.
Yeah.
They were invisible.
And these are two guys who were lighting up the league during the regular season, and come this playoff series, they've disappeared. Now, I'll give the Shamrocks credit. They were down 2-0 in this series. They put up a 10-3 win on, that would have been Tuesday night, which I kind of called a statement game just to kind of get them back in the series. And credit to Dubinsky for that game. He had a huge game to keep them in. But, unless they can find a way to get the King brothers going again,
but the big thing
it'll probably end tonight.
Dubinsky's hurt. He didn't play last night, and he's not playing tonight. Colin Jeffrey again is playing tonight. It is 9-8 now with 4 minutes to go.
In the game?
Yeah.
4 minutes left in the game?
Yes.
You say 9-8, 9-8,
by their standards again. I guess everybody wants to get a boat off of the island to get back to the mainland for work.
We've already seen
change to go 9-8.
We've already seen one game go to overtime in this series, so I mean, there's not much between these two teams.
No, and it really wouldn't surprise me to see a game 7. I'm longing for it right now. Kind of hoping for it, really. The one that's surprising on all this now, we'll come back to this one, I'm sure, but Coquitlam, what happened? I know we talked about the Kristen Del Bianco factor, and there wasn't much defense since he's facing 60 shots a night. And I guess Nanaimo exploited that, yeah? Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would attribute it to a couple of factors. I think that aspect of it with Del Bianco facing so much rubber every night, and I think he played all 18 games. Worthy enough to win league MVP, but I think I'd agree it's taken its toll on him. For me, the big question mark starting the series was the fact that Nanaimo was basically had 2 weeks off from the end of their regular season, and I was concerned about the level of rust.
They're sitting on their butts again now, waiting for this.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Clearly, that didn't happen. I mean, they took it to Coquitlam.
They look great right from the beginning.
For me, the other factor I think really is just obviously the added star power. Guys like Zach Mans, Heina Thompson, Adam Wiedemann, guys who probably would not have been playing for Nanaimo this year under different circumstances, given the MSL situation.
Right.
I think that was huge, but I think some of the guys who've been there who aren't maybe household names, John Phillips, Colton Lidstone, Teo Shantate McComber, all stepped up, had big game. Jared Smith as well. I think all of them got onto one of the 3 stars of the game at some point during the series, and I think the last factor would be Devlin Shanahan too. I mean, that's
huge.
He's been playing out of his mind, and honestly, to me, it reminds me of the level of growth we saw from Doug Jamieson a few years
back. Here's
back,
a question for you.
When he went from kind of struggling in NLL, had a huge season, in the summer, and then went on to win goaltender of the year the next year.
Right. Well, here's a question for you then, Mike. Devlin Shanahan's drafted to Buffalo, right? What does Buffalo do now?
Jeez.
That is a very good question, considering, I mean, technically right now, I know Vince is not signed, but let's just consider him part of the Bandits roster for the sake of argument here.
And by the way, Vince
Devlin Shanahan is basically the third string goaltender right now.
Mm-hmm. Like I say, Vince looked great on Monday. So Vince looks as young as he did 10 years ago when I watched him at Peterborough.
Yeah, throw him on a practice roster, maybe. Just keep developing him on a practice roster. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there, but
you throw him to the arena.
Oh, you mean having him play ALL, maybe?
That's what I'm saying. He needs to get his reps, right? So he needs. That's what they did with Steven Orleman, right? They put him in the ALL, and there were some things he still needed to sort out. And you look at the goalie he's becoming.
Yeah,
and
he got his reps in Cobourg too, so he was able to keep going. And I mean, Shawn could probably relate too, because Sask has all these goaltenders now with Dunkerley, who's coming up pretty strong, Haruska, who's a local product. So,
that's why we brought it up earlier. That's why we brought it up earlier. Like, I'm surprised they signed Penny. To be quite frank, because they got all these young guys who they just need a shot. That's all they need. Like Dunkerley, although I said Dunkerley didn't look technical sound when he played, he kept the ball out when he did play. Mm-hmm. In the end, that's all that matters. Why not give these young guys a shot? If you're going, especially if you're going through a rebuild.
Yeah. I mean, just giving some thought here. I mean, New England actually had when they were in New England, they had, I think, kind of a similar situation where they actually had, I think they had Warren Hill on their roster, and just he ended up getting cut in. He ended up getting cut in training camp. I think he might have been with Georgia before that, or he might have gone immediately to Georgia after that. Got some reps there and just got his shot in Halifax, a couple of years later, and has really stood out.
10-9 now, guys.
I mean, ultimately, that's a difficult. It's a difficult call for any GM to make. Really.
Yeah. It's you're really rolling the dice.
Absolutely.
You are. I mean, we saw, but we also saw Rochester have to do it with Ryland Hartley when Evan Kirk had to leave the team. They're almost there. You could say they're almost in a similar situation now, because they could re-sign Evan Kirk if the work commitment, makes sense.
That's a good.
They could, and then they would have him and Hutchcraft and Hartley. Obviously, we don't know the full deal with Hartley yet, at least not from what I've heard.
But this comment here, which you think that this makes sense? Penny could be used as a card for additional help with a team of struggling goalies. So
that was something I was kind of kicking. That's something I was kind of kicking around, but I mean,
sign and trade. This could be it.
Yeah,
for a little bit distance, but this could be the one, right? Because
only question is, where does he go?
Because again, Lane Hruska, he's not going to go back to ALL. He's already done that. He's already excelled at that. So
I mean, that kid's for real. I remember him back in juniors with the SWAT. I mean, the kid's for real. He just needs needs a shot, needs to see what he can do in the big stage. Yeah.
And I might have an answer to the question I just asked.
Okay.
As far as where Penny goes. How about Vegas? Because the only goalie on the Vegas roster currently is Landon Kells.
That's a great point.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a terrific point.
So,
and I would still give Landon Kells an opportunity, because I think Penny's better as a backup.
Yeah, and I mean, we know Keenan would love draft picks, so
they're going to get in there.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Las Vegas has them, so.
Yeah. So just before we go right now, it says 11-9 for Langley.
For Langley.
A couple of minutes to go.
Yep.
It looks like it's going to be Langley.
Sounds like that one's over.
So now the question for the WLA Finals, let's just assume that Langley holds on and wins. You have Nanaimo again with their sweep, getting a little extra rest. I don't think that's going to be an issue for them. But now you're going from playing a Coquitlam team that has very few, NLL stars. I mean, they have Brett McIntyre, Christian Del Bianco. I don't believe Tyler Garrison. Maybe that's about it.
See, the team that needs the rest right now is Langley because they have injuries. Robert Church.
Yeah,
a few other guys have been hurt.
That's true. I think what I was alluding to was just now you're going from a team that maybe doesn't have so many bona fide stars to a Langley team that's packed with between Dickson, Dobie, Church, Connor Robinson, Reese Calley, Chiliano. So
they held their own during the year, though. I think it's going to be a hell of a series.
And another thing to keep in factor is that, as you're mentioning, Nanaimo has just a little bit of a break, and this has been a grueling series for Langley. As you're mentioning, Gary, they got injuries. They've been beat up. This has been a tough series, and now they got to go and play a rested Nanaimo team who's
just on a roll.
Just on a roll, yeah. Like, it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, absolutely. How many more years does Matt Vince have left to play? Like I said, he looked great on Monday. He looked like he was 30. So he's ageless, really. It's when he decides to give it up. It's not when the game decides to give up on him. Doug Buchan's the backup in Buffalo, and Devlin Shanahan behind him. So does Doug Buchan, even though he played great for Peterborough this summer, also become expendable? Now, there's a question also for Vegas. Does Buffalo want to get in on this this pool?
Yeah,
and which pool would be better suited as a ready-made guy?
It always depends. I think it always depends. It's going to depend on just how ready Chugger thinks Shanahan is for NLL play. And I mean, I think we're going to see. I mean, there's always a team somewhere who has this issue where it's you got the young goalie ready to go and the veteran trying to hold on.
We just saw this not that long ago with Calgary, right? Where they didn't really quite know what to do with Christian Del Bianco. They had Poulin for a while. They had Frankie Chiliano, and Del Bianco just kind of sat in the wings until they finally got a shot. So that was I feel like that was a similar situation.
Very much so. Yeah, it's a good example.
Yeah.
It's almost a mirrored example, really. And you take a look. Both of those guys had careers elsewhere. And Del Bianco is able to run with that thing, and like he's never done before. He looked terrific, and's already got a championship under his belt. So
he is, and then I mean, factor in things like Poulin's retirement. If we don't see Rochester sign Evan Kirk, re-sign Evan Kirk. Now we're probably looking at more than half the teams in the NLL probably have a starting goalie under the age of, say, 26, 27, that are all either young or just about to enter their primes.
Yeah.
When you look at, you look at Wendy for Georgia, you look at either Hutchcraft or Hartley in Rochester. You have Jameson in Albany, who is 25 or 26, maybe not even. Del Bianco's still young. If Shoot wins the job in Sask, he's still young. So we saw Chris Origlieri in San Diego at 19 winning a game.
Yeah,
last year. So
amazing. So the future is really bright for the goaltending thing. We worried about that when we had all this expansion, but by the looks of things, that's the one thing that's going to be really, really settled. If anything, the gold piece to your team. Let's move on to MSL. Of course, we don't have a week without drama. We were able to get through the semifinals with Six Nations beating Coburg in 4 straight, but that series was a lot closer than 4-game sweep sounds. 3 of those 4 games were 1-goal games. The last game was a double overtime, and Austin Stotts was the hero. If you remember, in game 2, I believe he was the hero, scoring with just 25 seconds left, and dashing Coburg's hopes there too. There was only one game that was a little bit out of hand, and even then, I believe Coburg was down 6-1 in that game and tied it, and then wound up losing by a couple at the end. So Coburg, upstart Coburg, shall we say, is on the move upward. Unfortunately, it took Jim Milligan to get fired before the team actually found his legs. Their coach, Jim, is a friend, and he's a really good coach, but it just didn't seem to be working for him there in Coburg. And it looks like the team gelled around. They really didn't have a full-time coach. But Don Webb was on the bench, who's their GM as well. And they seem to rally. And it looks like they have a lot of good pieces coming up for the next couple of years as well.
So I guess I would ask, Gary, do you feel like that series was more Coburg stepping up to the moment, or do you think it was more Six Nations kind of letting them hang and kind of not playing to the level I don't think so. Would expect?
I think Six Nations played pretty strong, and they used both goalies. Both Hill and Jamieson played well. They faced a lot of rubber. But the Coburg is just young, and they don't know that they're supposed to lose. So they keep trying. And they made it really, really interesting. I would, especially in the closeout game, would have expected Six Nations to run away with it and just be done with it. And that didn't happen. In fact, that game was back and forth all night long. Goal up, tied. Goal up, tied. Goal up, tied. So I'm looking. I've said it a few years though, so I'm a little bit cautious on my saying, because Coburg has been on the cusp for a number of years with a number of players, and I thought when they got rid of Capito to Six Nations that would have been like the death stroke, but that's not thinking. Scott Dominey. You don't need 2 transition gazelles on the team. In fact, it's probably detrimental because there's only one ball. So by moving Capito onward, the older player, and leaving Dominey to be as an assistant captain there under Cam Milligan, I think that was a pretty good move. And I think this team's going to gel with the leadership all set.
Yeah, because I was just wondering, kind of, Gary, you're talking about them being on the cusp for so many years. Like, what's that missing piece?
If they're able to keep Stephen Orleman, because as much as I like Kevin, I think he's the weaker of the two. Kevin played a bunch of games in the beginning of the year. Steve came in later in the year, and that's when Coburg turned it around a little bit. Like I say, I think he's the better of the two brothers playing. They're both good. They're both NLL goalies, but I just think that Stephen has that mentality, that killer mentality, and he can just elevate his game as great goalies can, and steal one for them. And I think that piece, as well as probably a maturing of their offense, because there are a bunch of young kids playing. Because again, the talent goes up the road where the money is, to Peterborough. And, Coburg's sitting there going, what about us? Some crumbs, please. And they keep drafting well. And now to get a little bit of maturity on these guys will be really, really a good thing. And I think if it all stays true to form, next year you should see a little bit more coming from them. That being said, let's get into a bit of the drama, shall we? We have the Brooklyn the Brooklyn Peterborough series, and of course the OLA waited until the 11th hour before they'd even listen to this appeal. We were in the pregame party around the corner from Memorial. Legends, coaches, everybody else waiting, watching their phones to see if anybody had any news whatsoever. And a few few people had a few text messages back and forth saying, yeah, well, they decided to stay with the appeal, but nothing concrete, nothing that was public. Well, about an hour and a half before game time, we heard that the OLA decided to uphold their decision and strip Brooklyn of Game 2 for Prout being on there. And you keep hearing, well, how did Brooklyn do this? And shouldn't they have known better? And why wasn't it on the game? I don't have the answer to this stuff. All I know is that Gavin Prout was suspended for abuse of officials in Game 1. It held a 3-game suspension for first offense. He was on the bench in Game 2. Peterborough put a challenge. OLA stripped him of the game and upheld the decision. Now, people are talking about, well, then really Peterborough only won 3. Well, they won 3 very convincing games because if you look at the last game, I believe they were up 9-2 at one point on road to coasting to an 11-8 victory. So really, they were playing with their food coming to the third period. Now, I did get nervous when they started scoring, but I got a feeling that Peterborough wasn't going to let it get too close. They just we're just getting through the killing clock, staying healthy. I look forward to this Tuesday night in Six Nations to Game 1 between Peterborough and Six Nations, because that is first and second place in the league.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a heck of a series. So, just like I think Nanaimo and Langley is going to be a heck of a series. So it's really.
Oh yeah, the best is yet to come.
Yeah. If you can tune in, and I think at this point, whatever the Mann Cup final is going to be an awesome series too.
It's just whether I travel east or west Mann Cup. That's all. So both are about the same time frame. It takes me about an hour and a bit to go either way. And to answer that question, yes, he was in Game 2. He was the assistant coach, and Paul Day put in the complaint, and the OLA made the decision. So that's water under the bridge now. So let's hold on tight. There's going to be some fantastic lacrosse coming up. Now, speaking of some fantastic lacrosse, that brings us up to the PLL. Oh man. My poor Atlas. I almost wish that the Lightning stayed. Yeah, we waited forever for a game to get in because of lightning in the area. And when the game came in, Atlas already went home. And then the Whipsnakes, well, if there was ever a question about how strong the Whipsnakes team is, 12-1 at the half, that says something. When they are the best defensive Atlas is the best offensive team, and it's 12-1 for the Whipsnakes at the half.
Could say, how good is the Whipsnakes looking right now?
Oh my God! You look at it, guys like Matt Rambo, who just went to town, 4 goals, 3 assists. Zed Williams, 3 goals, 2 assists. Jay Carlson, couple of goals. Brad Smith, couple of goals. Mike Chenenchuk, Joey Nardella had a goal. Jackson Reed, Jake Bernhardt. It all up and down the lineup. You want balanced attack? You got balanced attack. You wanted highlight reel goals? They gave you highlight reel goals. You wanted to shut down, drag them out defense? Well, you shut down Jeff Teat, Eric Law, Chris Gray, Trevor Baptiste, really, Brian Constable, Romer Dennis. These guys did very, very little. Jeff Teat had a goal and 3 assists. Eric Law, a goal and an assist. Chris Gray, a goal and an assist. Danny Logan, 1 2-point goal, which was a howitzer. But needless to say, one making. Trevor Baptiste, 1. Brian Costabile, 1. Romar Dennis, 1. They shut down this team entirely, and most of this came in garbage time when this thing was long decided. So, I don't know what to make of this other than the question now is who can beat the Whipsnakes?
Yeah, I mean that's going to be the question, because we've been pondering for a month now how long they can get away with these narrow escape type victories, and then they go and put this kind of convincing win up, right before the playoffs are about to hit, and it's going to be a tough task no matter who you are. I mean, they've already, I believe they've locked up the number 1 seed, so they get the bye in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one less game for them to play and one extra week of rest.
Yeah.
It's scary because I mean this is a team that is already good and they're now peaking at the right time. That's what's scary.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what this team just pulled off this weekend, and a team against a team like Atlas too. It's one thing if they would have beaten up on the Cannons or would have beaten up on Chaos this year, but you beat up on a team that was really sitting in second, and now I question second, fourth, whatever, because we got that log jam. But that brings us over to the Water Dog Redwood game, and again, this one was an interesting finish too. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean it stayed close. Really, the difference was just Redwoods got an extra goal in the second and fourth quarters, and they come out with a 14-12 win, and they've definitely made things interesting because with Atlas and Water Dogs losing, the log jam that was right below Whipsnakes actually kind of moved a little lower in the standings, and Redwoods now, they've clinched a playoff spot. Now they're within 1 game of Water Dogs and Atlas and Archers, I believe, which we'll get to, but this is almost like this is almost starting to mirror Coborg's surge there at the end of their season, where now it's all of a sudden they're starting to come together, and I'm not sure what the catalyst is. You could certainly say play of guys like Charlie Bertrand, putting up highlight reel goals every week. That's been huge, I think, for them. And I think I would also attribute it to the comfort level with Rob Pennell at the X, just feeding that he's basically told the coach, Nat St. Laurent, that, hey, look, I don't have to be the number 1 guy. I don't have to be the guy scoring. I'm fine. Put me behind the goal and I'll feed people all day. As long as they're the ones putting it in the back of the net, whether it's Jones, Perkovic, Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh's been struggling pretty mightily this season, but he's starting to pick up his game. We've already talked about Bertrand. So, for me, I think it's that, and it's, Jack Kelly too, I think, has really stepped up. Almost has kind of taken away the starting job from Tim Troutner.
Absolutely. You know what? We don't hear a thing about Tim Troutner anymore. Kelly has played spectacularly. Yeah. You're not talking about a slouch either. Troutner has been the guy.
He has. He's pretty much, he's been right behind, the first couple of years of the PLL. He's been the guy right behind Blaze Reardon, basically. When you talked about the top 2 goalies, it was Reardon and Troutner. He's kind of fallen off a bit, but Jack Kelly stepped up. So
the face-off battle, Withers against Erlin, and Erlin was basically 2-1, right? 18-9 against one another. 18 of 28 altogether for Erlin. So
yeah. That doesn't shock me too much. Withers has, and
he hasn't
lack of a better word, he's struggled this summer.
Yeah, he hasn't been the same since his injury.
Yeah, and I mean, he hasn't been a regular in the lineup. They've had probably half their games. I think they've had to go with Zach Tucci, at the dot. So,
I've been lucky. I got to see Erlin all winter too. Right, he's playing for the Rock in the winter. So, you talk about the NCAA record holder for faceoff. So it's not like he's losing to a slouch.
Yeah. But I just, I think Withers will find his groove. You know, just it's just going to take him a little bit. You know, we've seen what he's
Only
capable
got a
of
couple of
in
weeks
the
left,
box. So,
Yeah.
yeah. We only got a couple of weeks left, so that brings us over to Archers and Chaos. Now we had a Tom Schreiber sighting in this one. 6 points, 4 goals, 1 2-point goal, so almost 5 goals really, and an assist. So, good time for him to come alive, eh? Again, Chaos. I'd love to say I have the answer. I don't have the answer. Yeah. They're there.
At this point, my answer is we need to start working on a graphic for every single week saying what's wrong with blank, because we seem to ask that
this is a whole new segment to the show, right?
We seem to ask that question somewhere every single week, whether it's a team in WLA, team with MSL, team in PLL, you know. But yeah.
Well, we got a question a little bit off topic, guys, from Patrick Bernard asking up our thoughts on the Wings. And I would suggest that we wait until free agency happens tomorrow and see if Crowley is leaving and a few other things. But I think with their offensive coach in there now with Paul Day, and they're on the cusp of something good before. I think now that they're going to have straight leadership in there, I think that they're going to right the ship and look for a big year out of Higgins in net. So I think that they're going to be challenging more so than they have the last couple of years.
I think actually, I was just going to say, I think it was big bringing in. I think that biggest move was bringing in McComb. He's an offensive mastermind, and especially reuniting him with Ben McIntosh, that's going to be a potent offense.
A reason now to give McIntosh a role, which he looked like he was just kind of floating around, kind of trying to figure out where he fit into all of this. So with McComb in there, and with again giving McIntosh a role as a leader on the offense, whether Crowley stays or not, I don't know. Again, we're talking about guys getting off the bus so guys can get on the bus. We have the entry draft coming up in a couple of weeks as well, and I think that's going to be very telling on how the Wings season is going to go. So stick with us, Patrick. I think the next couple of weeks are going to be very telltale on how the Wings season is going to go.
Yeah, the last thing I would add with that, specifically, since you mentioned the draft, is I believe they'll have now a first-round pick. The last couple of years they haven't, because of the trade to reacquire Crowley that they had.
Right.
Yeah. They had given up a couple of first-round draft picks in consecutive years to, at the time, New England. So I believe they would have this year. I think they've kind of run through all those years now with those draft picks. Now they have a first-rounder, so they can get
it. It's big because they haven't for a while.
So
to get us back to PLL though, they were tied almost halfway through the third quarter, and then all of a sudden, that was it. It's like they ran out of gas. From that point on, really, it was all Archers, and the fourth certainly was all Archers. Just take away that last goal by Smith with 2 minutes to go. The rest of it, really, 5 of the next 6 goals after they tied it were Archers.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's more telling of Archers finally getting back on track after a few games where they had.
I think it's a bit of both, Mike. I think it's a bit of both. I think we were talking about it last week. I think that they have that, whether it's injury or exhaustion, they just came straight out of an NLL final playing 3 grueling games against Colorado. They never really ready to ship. Matt Finns looked great, but he only played 1 game since he came back, and it happened to be the game on Monday. He was in the lineup once, and he was scratched for the other games. He was on the team so that he could be used in the playoffs, but he didn't play. No. These guys have played full bore basically since 3 days after their championship finished. They were on a plane, and that next weekend they're playing PLL instead of NLL. And I don't think that these guys actually had a chance to get a breath, and I think it caught up.
Yeah, Yeah, and you mentioned three playoff games. Really, it was 6.
Well, yeah, you look at the
even
Yeah.
the first round game against Albany, which was basically tied at the half, low scoring, and I think a 2-goal game after 3 quarters. So it looked a lot worse at the end than it was, but that was grueling. The 2 games against Toronto that literally both came down to the buzzer. So really, it was 6. I mean, every one of their 6 playoff games was just a slugfest.
Absolute slugfest, yeah.
So I think it took its toll, but at the same time, we saw some games kind of to open the second half where Archers just kind of inexplicably had a power outage of sorts, where no one could, So it almost looks like maybe that came back last week. I mean, certainly for Archer's sake, you would hope it's returned just in time for the playoffs.
Right, and it brings us to our last one. So the battle for last place is still alive and well because, of course, the Cannons dropped it to Chrome. Again, take Lyle out of the lineup, and I expected more. I really did. Stephen Kelly on face 11 for 22. He did his job. He did well, but I don't know, man. I'd like to give him more credit, but it's tough.
Well, I'd almost reverse that power outage analogy for Cannons. They just where's their fourth quarter play? Just all season. It's just been pretty lackluster. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look through all their games, but I wouldn't be surprised if the fourth quarter is their lowest scoring quarter all season.
Right.
And
well, we got 2.
There's no explanation for that, but certainly that can't happen against a team like Chrome, who's just who's pretty much made their living this season, just pouring it on in the fourth quarter.
Which is funny because they only got 1 goal in the fourth quarter, but they had 8 to 5 at the half, and they kind of coasted because the Cannons averaged 2 goals a quarter, so they're not going to win many games on the PLL.
No.
The best players in the world playing, you're not going to get many victories, and they have 1, right? So
yeah, but again, I mean, this was huge for Chrome. It puts them a game up, or they puts them in second place. They can't catch Whip Snakes at this point, but they're a game up on Atlas, Archers, and Water Dogs. And what do we have this week? So Chrome plays Redwoods this week. That's definitely going to be a game with significant implications. Certainly.
Well, with that Atlas loss, man, we have that log jam instead of for second place. It's now for third place, right?
Yeah, now it's for third.
Yeah.
So now you have Archers. Archers are technically the third place team. Atlas is in fourth, and Water Dogs is in fifth, and that's probably based on scoring differential, I believe.
Ironically,
but then you have close. Redwoods at 4 and 5, 1 game behind. So
it's so close.
Yes, they're not out of it.
Both have 118 goals each. It comes down to the Water Dogs have given up 117, whereas Atlas has been able to keep it down to 110. So the score differential is 1 for the Water Dogs and plus 8 for Atlas. So, barring something really, really crazy, another game like
because I mean, you realistically could see, a bunch of teams at 5 and 5. Maybe not all 4 of those teams, but
now knowing Atlas's luck, they play Chaos this week, and this will be the week that Chaos get it all together.
Well, Archers play Water Dogs in week 11, so that's
going to be a big game. That's a huge game.
Someone's going to escape that log jam, but there could be a log jam for fourth place, a 3-way tie potentially with 3 teams at 5 and 5. And with that, you also have to figure that whoever wins that 3-way tiebreaker, if there is one, is going to be the fourth place team for the February 6th tournament. So, I mean, there's a lot on the line here. Not so much. Well, I was going to say not so much for the Whip Snakes, but they do play the Cannons, and because Chaos lost, Cannons at 1-8 on an 8-game losing streak are still alive for the final playoff spot.
Right.
If they can win and Cannons lose, chances are they would make the playoffs, even though they'd be tied. Because I think at this point, the scoring differential is about 2 goals difference between Cannons and Chaos. So pretty much a Cannons win and a Chaos loss would put Cannons most likely in the playoffs and leave the defending champs on the outside looking in, which would be
amazing.
Wow. Yeah.
That would be quite the story. Quite the storyline.
It just shows you the parity of this league, though. You know, like to have something like that, a complete turnaround, you're going to have both of the history champions outside looking in.
Yeah.
So we'll have a brand new changing of the guard, which is always good. It's always good for the league. You know, good to see other teams make it to the top.
And how about Chrome, who could go 7-3 and just blow away their previous win totals? You know,
it's both years combined.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, so, it's ridiculous.
Well, guys,
I got to say I'm pretty high on them, but we'll definitely talk next week.
Yeah.
And maybe give some predictions for the playoffs.
I'm still an Atlas guy. You know, I took my lumps with Victoria tonight. They lost 15-10. That is over. And I took my lumps again with Atlas this weekend. So it's been a lumpy weekend, shall we say. So let's hope for something better next week. Any final thoughts, guys, before we sign off for another week? Shawn?
No, looking forward now to the WLA Finals. Since, as you said, we have a final score, so we know it'll be Langley versus Nanaimo. I think it's going to be a great series. Looking forward to that. And, of course, NLL free agency starts up within mere hours now, I guess. So we're really looking forward to see what moves take place.
Absolutely. Mike, what do you think? Final thoughts?
I'll give a couple of predictions. I think with the NLL free agency, I don't think as many guys are going to move as a lot of folks think. And I'm going to go Nanaimo in 6.
Nice.
I like that one.
So
yeah, I kind of agree with
that. For WLA. I won't give a prediction. I've been kind of slow in following the MSL. Personally, I'd like to see. I think. No disrespect to Peterborough. 3-time defending champs. I'd like to see someone else win, but I think a six. I think a Six Nations Nanaimo awesome. Man Cup final.
That'd be great.
I mean, considering
the bounce back that the entire sport has had since we, have kind of, I don't want to say exited the pandemic, but since we've kind of gotten back to play, this would be phenomenal. This would go right up there with, the news of them, of the Haudenosaunee eating off the plane in Ireland and, being given, pretty much the royal treatment, like they should get. That would just be phenomenal for the game. It would just help to bring so much more awareness to all the causes that the Haudenosaunee, just the indigenous people in general, have been trying to bring to the forefront. So, here's to hoping. Sorry, Gary. Gonna have to rain on Peterborough a bit, but
that'd be a phenomenal Man Cup.
If you just add it to Victoria and to Atlas, just put it all in one weekend, and then next weekend will be,
I figure it's Peterborough in 6, but then again, look at my track record this weekend. So
yeah, you just jinxed it now. You just jinxed it.
I just take it in stride. For Patrick, you're welcome. Anytime that we can help you and help grow the game by helping more people understand it, we're happy to. As for J5, we know him. He looks familiar, this guy. 6 not ski, but he's got 6 Nations in 6. And, of course, he was asking about where's the inside the box guy. He's awesome. He'll be back. I'm pretty sure he'll be back next week. He's probably got more insight than I do about it, but yeah. Might as well finish off in Saskatchewan on vacation, camping away there in some beautiful weather. For Muffler Mike Kostiuk in Connecticut, I'm Gary Groob in Toronto. I want to thank you for coming aboard with us for another week. We love talking lacrosse. As Bill Fox always said, it's a great day for lacrosse. Every day is a great day for lacrosse.
Yes.
So we look forward to doing this again next week, and we will see you soon.